Hey everyone, I wanted to fire off a quick video here for the group before I head off to the gym. I got an email from a father actually. He doesn't do Jiu-Jitsu himself, but he was interested in learning out more about it. Very conscientious dad, by the way, to really understand it and help out his son with training. And he had a question. I get these questions all the time through email and PM. So I wanted to read this because it speaks to something I've just talked about recently in the group and have talked about time and time again. But again, not that I think everybody's going to immediately jump in to the 40 plus group and consume all the content that I've left, but what I want this to be is more than just a forum for people to come on and post videos of funny jiu-jitsu things or articles and things like that. It's for support and it's also for learning, right? It's for people to be better at jiu-jitsu after they hit the 40 mark, the 50s, the 60s, so on and so forth, and to understand how to do that, because there are changes to, typically, broadly speaking, there are changes to your body, changes to the schedule, and a lot of people like to brush right past those, say, oh, you're making too much of it, but then you see all the common misconceptions coming up. And one of the misconceptions I talk about all the time is how to train the best way, because you see these things I've just spoken about recently, like these brain viruses, these memes get repeated over and over again, and people take them as being true, but you have to actually ask yourself, is it actually true? So one of the ways we see this when it comes to methodology is the common idea of, if you're having frustration with your training progress, you need to train more. And my point is always, you have to put in training time, right? There's no way, your body and your brain particularly need those repetitions. And there's no shortcut for getting the requisite amount of training time. However, all time that you put into training is not necessarily created equal. And as a matter of fact, the dominant mode, I have to keep refreshing my laptop here so I can read this. The dominant mode in training, which I still see most instructors doing, even famous ones, is static repetitions. Okay, so they call drilling just the learning portion, what we call introductory stage, which is when you have to just basically get the move down. So doing, basically repetitions with no resistance, that's what that means. And then once they've done that, usually in a sequence, if it's well presented, a lot of times that passes for great instruction, right? But just because it's well presented doesn't mean it's actually helping you increase your performance. Makes sense? So teaching and clear presentation and logical connections between techniques is great, but it's only part of the puzzle, okay? So then what happens is, after you've done some technical sequences against no resistance, then the dominant mode is, okay, now we're going to go wrestle, roll, competitively, right? Randori, whatever you want to call it. And then everybody is going, pretty hard, working their A games. And the problem there is that there is no logical bridge for your brain, for your motor learning, between essentially the theory and the application, meaning the techniques you just learned with no resistance, and then the going 100% or close to it in live rolling, right? So you don't get the adaptation with your reps that you need to be able to make that a seamless transition. And when people are looking at this like, well, yeah, but look at all these great people that have been produced from this training methodology at this particular school or under this particular instructor. It's like, yeah, you'll always have people that put in a ton of time and or are super athletic or are just like super, kind of geeked out on jiu-jitsu, so they think about it 24/7, practice 24/7, and they'll always rise to the top. But what I'm talking about is, what is going to be the most efficient and effective way to get everybody better, okay, even those who are not as effective. So here's what the dad wrote. This series looks fantastic. I'm always impressed with the way you communicate your teaching of jiu-jitsu. And he starts mentioning that his son trains at an academy and he understands Jiu-Jitsu takes time to understand, even the fundamentals. And the thing I like about these programs is it helps me to understand what's going on in certain positions in the way that I can communicate it to my son. I do get frustrated sometimes with class structure. They learn something new, let's say the fireman's carry. And this class structure is do it with your partner for 3 minutes, no resistance, then go back to the wall, and it's time for sparring. I've tried to talk to some of the coaches about this, but the answer generally comes back in two ways. Do more classes or take private lessons. Sorry, just to be clear, I don't train Jiu-Jitsu, but I'm interested in helping my son through the process. And do you have any material that's aimed at teaching kids, or is it the same way that you teach adults? Okay. So, here's the common problem. Again, I get this all the time, this frustration. Sometimes it's a disconnect for people because they're like, I know my instructor or the instructors that teach my academy. I mean, they're very successful. I can see how good they are on the mat. Maybe they're successful competitors. But yet, based on everything you're seeing and what I'm observing, there's a gap there, right? So they're good. But again, here's where you need to make a clear distinction between not just the level of the athlete for their own training and teaching, because a lot of people can be very good on the mat and they can teach quite well, but that doesn't mean they're going to be coaching people well, because teaching is presenting clearly and articulately, but then when it comes to creating a coaching environment, that is actually methodology. That is how to get people good with their skills, okay, like improve their skill set. And a lot of people just conflate all those. They mix them all together. So they think, in order to be, the best, you have to go train with the person who's the best. And people get very attracted to that. And then it will come up, but everybody knows the best athlete's not necessarily the best teacher. So then they'll go, but I took that great athlete's class, and he or she did a great job of explaining the technique, so therefore that's who I should train with because they're a great teacher. But what's their training methodology? Maybe they've got the first two things, but they don't have the methodology, so they're just teaching people to sort of do what they're good at, which is a huge mistake. And I don't care who we're talking about. There's no debate. Like, if you're teaching people your own style, that is not the best way to teach people to learn Jiu-Jitsu. And if you're teaching people to go from just doing intro stage repetitions to full resistance training, that is objectively not the best way to do Jiu-Jitsu. And just saying to somebody, take more classes or take private lessons, is basically just saying, take on more volume of what is already a flawed process. Instead, we should be having a logical bridge, again, for motor learning between the techniques and the positions that you're practicing in class and the full application, which would be live rolling. To learn more about this, you can check out my free series. Currently, again, it is in the Facebook group, and you can get it's the skill acquisition and skill development drilling ebook, and that used to be under my membership site only, but now I'm offering it to anybody. You can subscribe and get that right away, and that will give you basically all the answers you need to improve your game in terms of the methodology. In terms of technique, kind of going in order from what's most important all the way through, you can also check out my Pillars courses at my website, and all that information is in the group description. Okay. As always, if you have any questions of your own, you can post them in the group here, and I will try to get to them. And also, you can email me at info@40plusbjj.com. That's a 40 in the email address. Okay. Hope that was helpful, guys. I will talk to you soon.